Okay, this is my story of being diagnosed with ADHD. Honestly, I have notes, but we'll just see how it goes, okay? Grab your coffee, and hopefully you can follow along with my journey. But growing up, I was a very happy child, especially up until like middle school. And my mom, I remember telling me this story of, I think it was in first grade, and I kept going to the front of the class, and every time I'd get called on, I'd raise my hand, the teacher would call me, I'd have to get up and go all the way to the front of the class to announce my answer to the question. And the teacher, being relatively new, didn't know what to do with me, basically. And my mom was just like, well, tell her to go sit back down. That kind of defines my elementary school years. While I was very happy, I was also just very active and loved life. But middle school kind of hit, and having to study a lot harder, going to high school and feeling like I was just kind of dumb. You know, obviously I had a few teachers who weren't very nice and could have been more supportive and helpful, but it was so hard for me to study. And my parents expected a lot out of me, which is good. Like, they had high expectations. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think that actually helped me have enough anxiety where the anxiety would cause me to have adrenaline. And so that got me through a lot of tests. But it took a lot of different strategies for my brain to comprehend things, just because my brain was always on to the next thing, right? And obviously during this time, I didn't know anyone else thought any differently. Now, I knew some people were just naturally smart, I thought, and naturally good test takers. And I just wasn't one of those people. I had to get that adrenaline rush and finally sit down and make all the note cards and study until finally the information would stick. Probably not for too long, but enough for me to get an okay grade on the test. And I also I felt like I wasn't a good test taker. I constantly felt like I couldn't concentrate unless it was complete silence, and even better if I was alone and didn't have anything else going on that I was going to be looking at. So when I finally got to college, that was very difficult. The classes were a lot bigger. And when I went to school to be a teacher, I took this big test called the Praxis. And actually, it really helped because when I was taking the test, you were allowed to have headphones, and there were big blocks between you and anyone else that was taking it. It was complete silence. And so it did really help, but honestly, there was a clock. And so that distracted me. But I got through it. So growing up, life was hard for school years. I also had a lot of anxiety that led to, when I got older, I thought I was just somebody who was very anxious, and maybe I had depression even at times. Anyway, so I'm in college, and I have still that want to please my parents. So I'm trying really hard to both become an adult, create a schedule for myself, pass all these tests, not completely fail out of school. The first semester was a bomb, but I think that's a lot of kids just because we have to like balance making the schedule. But I was making choices that weren't smart, and I was doing things very chaotically that I think my brain was having a hard time thinking through full consequences still. And so yeah, I made it out, I survived, I graduated, and then I started teaching, and the structure really helped me. The structure of having to do things by a certain time, somebody was going to be on my back. And so actually that really helped me to stay on task as much as I could. Let's see what my notes say. I worked, over the past 10 years that I was a teacher, I worked with some fabulous women who really supported my needs, and we fed off of each other. But then, I've said this before in other videos, that I, for 3 years, worked at this school, and I hated every living moment of it. And it had really nothing to do with the children. They were awesome. Kids are basically the same everywhere you go. They just need different support sometimes, but kids are a lot of times kids. You find them in all shapes and forms, just like us. But that team could not support what I was needing. And even more so, they gave me so much anxiety because they were just like catty women, mean, that it escalated a lot of my symptoms. And so that is actually when I went to the doctor with my husband, because I just like couldn't go to school. Like I went, but I was just like not functioning. I was so overwhelmed and I always felt like I was doing something wrong. And yeah, so they diagnosed me that they thought that I was going through like a depressive episode, and anxiety. And so they put me on medication. I don't even remember what, honestly, it was. It was maybe 2 different kinds. And they tried different things, but it maybe numbed me, I guess is what I could call it, but it didn't help anything that I was going through. And so I took that for maybe 6 months and then off and on for a little while just to cut the edge. But once I left that school and didn't have those people around me anymore, I stopped taking the medication altogether. I'm not really somebody who was depressed. And that's what I found out later from my doctor, is that a lot of times people with ADHD will first get diagnosed with like anxiety and depression, because if you don't dig deeper, that is really a lot of the symptoms that we're showing. And but I just didn't feel like that. Like I was still enjoying the things that I was enjoying. You know, I was just in a situation that was a catalyst to my ADHD. And so anyway, left that school, went to teach ESL, absolutely love those women. I'm actually hanging out with them on Friday. They are just like salt of the earth, good people. We don't even have all the same like moral beliefs or whatever you want to call it. But I think that's what's so beautiful about it, is that when you meet people that are just good people, like it doesn't matter if you guys disagree, even on some fundamental stuff, you know, obviously there's a lot more to that, but we found enough common ground and we helped each other and we loved each other and we worked together. And so they would pick on my quirks, and that was okay because we all did that to each other, right? We loved each other. So I remember some of the things that I never noticed I did as a teacher before, because I was always working basically as the only adult in the room, right? With a bunch of kids, was that I would sing out of nowhere, and I would get a song in my head and just sing the rest of the day. Now I would try to like keep it down low, but there was always between like 2 and 3 of us in this one room together and kids. And so somebody would say something and I would just start singing a song that reminded me of. Anyway, it was annoying. I get that, but it's just what I always did. I just didn't realize I was doing it all the time until somebody else pointed it out. I also realized that I have a I guess a coping mechanism where I'll like smell my hair like this, and it kind of calms me down. I didn't even realize I was doing it until they started making fun of me about it. And so yeah, that was one of the things that I learned to like deal with some of the issues I was having. But I think while I was there, it was really nice to have somebody else's perspective who I was with constantly, and was like, oh, that's really funny, or like I would forget things. Sometimes I feel like I have a Dory brain, like from Finding Nemo.
All right, Dory, let's go over this one more time. We know your memory's not the best.
Yep, can't remember diddly.
I know.
Can't remember squat.
That's right.
Diddly squat.
Diddly squat.
And like the short-term memory stuff, I would just, like, even this morning, every morning, I'll go upstairs, I'll think to take my medicine. If I see something else, I'll get distracted, and then I'll forget to take my medicine altogether. And then I'll go back and I'll try it again. And it might take me 2 to 3 times before I actually take my medicine or before I brush my teeth, if I get distracted by something. So that's the way my brain kind of works. It's just like often bouncing around. And, you know, if I was somebody who could constantly work outside and that's just how my brain kind of works. It bounces around a lot. And so, back on the subject. Okay, so my husband has a lot of the same symptoms as well. And so I feel like that's why we never really identified, or maybe we did, but at the same time that we might have ADHD, because we were both doing the same kind of silly things. But that being said, back to my list. Okay, staying on task. So teaching really helped me because it had a very strict schedule. Now, while I still forgot things occasionally, and people would remind me, especially when I had an amazing team, we all worked together, we all helped each other. And obviously, I don't think forgetting something is just along with having ADHD, but it was just something that I would get really annoyed at myself about, is forgetting things that I knew I should be doing. And I did them all the time, and yet I would still forget occasionally. And so then 2 years ago, I quit my job as a teacher. And part of the reason was, I don't know if this has to do with ADHD or not, just my personality, but I felt caged. Like I was a caged bird almost. Like I wanted to be free. And my brain was just always oppressed, like it's suffering. And I really enjoyed teaching. I love teaching kids, but it's just the structure of the schedule was extremely exhausting for my brain. It's not something that I wanted to keep doing on that very rigid schedule. Now, I still go in and sub sometimes, and I really enjoy working with children, but I couldn't take this overwhelming feeling that I just wanted to break out and run, right? Like every day I went in there, I just wanted to run away, even when I was enjoying the people I was working with. So quit, started this job. Well, I started YouTube before that, but I really got into doing YouTube and being my own boss. And I love it. I love being able to work with my own brain to find the best schedule for myself, to figure out ways like meditation, like having some quiet time away from the chaos and just having time for my brain to think and me be able to listen to myself really changed my life and has really benefited me. Now, I have been diagnosed with ADHD, and that was about 4 months ago, 5 months ago. I don't remember. I had a suspicion I had this for years. Finally went in because of this job, and I got some help, and I'm seeing a doctor. I'm actually going to see a psychologist, I think, counselor. I'm gonna call him a counselor, next week, which is awesome. So they're gonna help me with some more strategies. But while creating my own schedule, it was really hard for me to stay motivated. I literally would complete one small task, like an email, and have to cheer myself on. Like, Becky, you're so awesome. Wow, I can't believe you did that.
So I can't be alone on this one. Does anyone else talk to themselves while they're home alone and like give themselves pep talks?
But then I'd have these high highs and these low lows. When I finished that task, I finished cheering myself on. The realization that even though this is something I really like doing, and even though it's something that I want to get better at, and I want to continue doing YouTube and even creating new platforms where I can teach people and grow. Even though I loved what I was doing, I was struggling with keeping up and being able to keep up a schedule and being able to fulfill the basic things that I wanted to do, but they were hard. And so that's why I went and saw the doctor, and she pegged me immediately. Lots of red flags here, lady. Like, let me help you. And she has. She's amazing. I see her every month, which is awesome. I use this app called Circle Medical, which if you don't like going into doctors, which I do not, I found this amazing doctor. She's so kind and helpful. And you do have to do the lab work on your own outside. We have something called LabCorp that we use in Virginia. And so that was easy enough. And then I don't have to go in to an actual doctor and sit in the office. But seeking these things was something, and seeking these things and understanding my ADHD and why I was struggling so much, and being able to reflect and have time to reflect on my life up until now. I wish that I had known more, hence I'm making this video. I wish I had known other women that were struggling with this, hence I'm making this video. And really to say that whether you want to go into a doctor and get diagnosed, or whether you just hear these things and you say, yeah, that's me, there are lots of strategies that include and don't include medicine, but you do have to seek help, and you do have to take time to learn about yourself and be quiet and sit and meditate and think and write down your feelings, and go out and get more help if you need to, like I did. And when I was constantly rushing around as a teacher, I didn't spend any time on myself, learning about myself. Honestly, I didn't have a lot of time to do that, but I wish I had spent more time seeking understanding about myself, as opposed to just being like, well, this is me. While that's still the case, this is still very much me. It's so amazing to have a better understanding of how my brain works and how I can work with my brain to use my brain as my superpower, as opposed to always just getting annoyed with myself that I'm doing things wrong or forgetting things. That ADHD is not something that everyone has. So I have something that is special about me, and learning how to seek and find and use the benefits of this diagnosis, as opposed to seeing it only as a negative thing. So that being said, I normally don't talk about this. I really felt driven to share, and I know this was just a chat. But if you are struggling, there is hope. If you are overwhelmed by yourself, if people keep telling you that you just have anxiety, but you don't feel like that's right, if you just are getting told you have depression and you feel like that's not right, there are ways of figuring this out. There are doctors out there, like on Circle Medical, who can help you, who will do the paperwork with you, who will help you to better understand yourself, whether you have ADHD or not. But seeking understanding is something that I'm so grateful that I finally took the step in my 30s to finally do to better understand myself. And honestly, because of learning more about minimalism, because I have simplified, streamlined my life, which is what I talk about a lot more in other videos on my channel, it has tremendously impacted the way that I can live day to day in a peaceful and calm environment. When I always thought that I was just a super messy person, a slob, lazy, couldn't get things done, my brain wasn't working, whatever you want to call it, I realized and have worked with my brain through minimalism, through simple living, through a lot of techniques that I've learned along the way that have showed me that my brain is not less than. My brain is actually amazing, works crazy good, but I have to put myself in an environment where my brain can thrive. And hopefully yours can too. Anywho, if you'd like to learn more about my story and things that I have done for myself, then please put a comment down below. And also, if you are looking for more lessons on how to streamline your life, then click on one of these videos right here, and I wish you guys all the best.